I will meet the dying Emperor's empty eye sockets and tell him the war is almost over. At last, after 10,000 years of banishment in the underworld, his angels are coming home. These are the end times. None of you are destined to survive the coming of the Crimson Path. The Imperium has been losing the Long War since it was first declared. And now, we enter the endgame. I will tell you everything, Inquisitor, because for you, it will change nothing. Throughout the millennia of humanity's rise to power, many powerful foes have risen to prevent the species' ascension. Forgotten empires of hollow kings, depraved seneschals who betrayed their mantle of rulership, and beings from beyond the veil of the material world, reveling in the misery of others. Yet among the Imperium's greatest woes is that no shortage of nemeses were crafted from its own failures. Myriad despots and tyrants, all too willing to take up arms against their creator to mete out a meager vestige of revenge for their own sins. For today, we shall elucidate a warband of chaos which eclipses all others, led by the greatest threat to the Emperor's reign, provided power by malevolent benefactors. The coalition of the despoiler of empires, the Black Legion. In order to understand the origins of the largest warband to ever sully the stars, mention of their primogenitor of old must be taken into consideration. Though a collection of traitors of many creeds and cultures, the foundations of the Black Legion stem from the armies of their leader, Ezekiel Abaddon, the most revered of all Astartes' creeds, in their glory days, the Sons of Horus. The foremost legion, as the first among equals during their tenure of the Unification Wars, the 16th Legion as it was known, fought under the banner of the Lunar Wolves, a title which struck fear into the hearts of the wicked, as their pacification of Terra's moon lived on as legend for many years. Drawing the majority of their recruits from the subjugated enemies of the Master of Mankind, with his reunion of his most cherished son, Horus Lupercal, the character of the Lunar Wolves changed. Overwhelmingly drawing aspirants from the gang members of their Primarch's homeworld, Cathonia, the cultures of the planet's crime syndicates took on a character of their own, establishing trappings and customs which reflected the hardy circumstance of their prior toil. Quickly establishing themselves as the pioneers of the Legiones Astartes, the benefit of being led by a returned Primarch of the Imperium, unopposed for decades, cannot be understated. Aggressive in their deployments, specializing in shock assault formations, even the glories won by the enormous Ultramarines Legion, which would follow, supported by their empire's logistics within the Imperium's domains, could not close the gap between their deeds made. The pinnacle of their glory achieved with the Imperium's victory against the Greenskin Hordes, the Ulanor Triumph marked the beginning of a new era of the Imperium, with their Primarch Horus Lupercal's ascension as War Master. Appointed to continue the Emperor's crusade in his stead, whilst the Master of Mankind attended to pressing duties upon the throne world, the Lunar Wolves eschewed their pearl and black ceramite in favor of the sea green, which would mark their new namesake, the Sons of Horus. Their favor undisputable to all of their peers from this day forth, regardless of the honor bestowed upon the Legion. The torment felt by Horus, now burdened as the custodian of his father's dream for galactic dominance, would prove the key to his downfall. Bristling at the decision made by the Council of Terra, whose meddling continued to interfere with his directives as Master of the Great Crusade, Horus's doubts of his own capabilities fed upon his bitterness, resentment, and frustration with his father's rule. Upon the world of Darwin, the path of Horus's damnation was set in motion. His wounding by the fell artifact, the Anaphame inviting disease of the Plague Father to ravage his body, as his stalwart son, Abaddon, helplessly watched on. Turning to the advisements of the snake within their midst, Chaplain Erebus of the Word-Bearers to find a means to heal their Primarch, priests of the Serpent's Lodge of Darwin tended to Horus's wounds as they forfeit his soul to the gods of chaos. War erupted upon the uncontested realms of mankind. The War Master now pledged as a servant of chaos, embarking upon a 7-year campaign to depose his father as the new Emperor of Humanity and Dark King Ascendant. Purging the loyalist elements within the ranks of his legion upon the killing fields of Istvan III, his alliance with the Primarchs Fulgrim of the Emperor's Children, Angron of the World Eaters, and Mortarion of the Death Guard, sparking the first great conflict to reforge the galaxy in his own image. reticent to deploy his own forces for the remainder of the campaign. Horus Lupercal held his precious sons in reserve to better unleash upon Holy Terror for the conclusive final gambit of his betrayal, the Siege of Terror. Billions perished as entire legions of Astartes suffered the barbs of pride, arrogance, corruption, and deceit. The blood of angels soaking the soil of countless worlds until the final battle waged within Horus's flagship. Nearly a decade of slaughter ended by the Master of Mankind as he felled the War Master of Chaos. Ezekiel Abaddon witnessed the death of his own Gene Father's dream before withdrawing from the conflict at the helm of the Vengeful Spirit. His once mighty legion had been sundered, the loyalists clutching bitter victory from the jaws of defeat, as every traitor made haste to the relative safety of the Eye of Terror. Escaping the wrath of the loyalists, now unwilling to enter the domains of the terrible pantheon of chaos, the traitor legions turned upon themselves as they fought for scraps of resources. The first captain of the Sons of Horus, unwilling to draw his blade for a cause he saw no purpose in fighting for. Withdrawing from the mayhem wrought by the Legion Wars, Abaddon roamed the expanse of the Ocularis Terribus, the vengeful spirit fading from prominence as Abaddon's pilgrimage to seek new meaning abandoned his legion to slow decay without true leadership. Floundering, with no Primarch nor direction, the Sons of Horus struggled to rally under common cause. The constant harrying by their former allies, now empowered by their patron gods, bleeding the 16th slowly over time. Preserving the body of the War Master within their fortress of the demon world of Malium, these crestfallen sons constructed a mausoleum of rust and steel, made of broken voidcraft known as the Lupercalios, to protect his form as best was feasible. Defending their bastion from demonic incursions, this last duty of the Broken Legion allowed for a flimsy unity until the Lupercal's body was seized by the Emperor's children. Spiriting the War Master's corpse to the world of harmony, the Spider of the Third, Fabius Bile, intended to clone the War Master in order to begin the war against the Loyalists anew. Desperate for any means to prevent the Lupercal's revival, only to serve by the whims of the Manflayer, the Widowmaker of the Sons of Horus, Falcus Kyber, assembled what allies remained to him, willing to seek out the Vengeful Spirit. Aided by the Thousand-Sun Sorcerer, Iskandar Kion, Sargon Eregesh of the Wordbearers, Leorvine Ukris of the World-Eaters, and Telemachon Lyris of the Emperor's Children, Kyber set out to retrieve Abaddon from his dark pilgrimage to lead the Sons of Horus in the Lupercal's stead. Finding a bedraggled and aloof warrior with the conclusion of their traversal through the fickle tides of the warp, the Fellowship of Kyber looked upon the vast array of trophies Abaddon had claimed within a hangar large enough to have once housed titans. Rotting corpses of myriad foes hung from chains as piles of bones, forbidden scrolls, fragments of armor, and untold weapons scattered among the decking. The first captain had not stood idle during his self-imposed exile, as was evident from Kion's inspection of a golden halberd claimed from a custodian among the messy array of trophies. Briefly disarmed by the peculiar hermit, who had assembled imitations of a Techmarine's workshop strewn with priceless trophies preserved with little care, the first captain had spent his time not only slaughtering fell beasts, but also studying forbidden tomes of unknown progeny. Revealing himself to have lured the pilgrims to his side, Abaddon had known of the destruction of Lupercalios, yet showed no interest in fighting wars fought between squabbling warbands. Choosing each of them to be the impetus for a new brotherhood of warriors, Abaddon would not return to a horde, but a legion, recast with no Primarch to lead them into calamity as all others had. Arming himself with the talon of his slain father, Abaddon made course for harmony, Kion psychically dragging his own vessel, used to reach the first captain, the Talarlok, behind them for months on end. Hurling the inert voidcraft with his psychic might, following the Talarlok's devastation of Harmony's surface, Abaddon and his comrades in arms descended upon the Canticle City. Confronting Fabius Bile within his laboratory, Abaddon and his pilgrims found upon clones of the Primarchs in varying states of development, purging them all until the cause of their venture revealed itself. Horus Lupercal, reborn in stature, if not mind, fought the band of warriors, the great mace of the War Master, Worldbreaker, hurling them to and fro until Abaddon caught its haft within his talon. Remarking that such a weapon was not his to wield, the clone of Horus felt its bite tear through his chest as Abaddon rent the abomination from existence and proclaimed himself the true War Master of Chaos. swearing to overthrow the Corpse Emperor as he demanded all Astartes of the Sons of Horus to join his new legion. Every captain who opposed Abaddon's rule were felled until he stood unopposed. Whether seeing Abaddon as the rightful successor of Horus, intrigued by the prospect of his radical new legion, or submitting to strength alone, it mattered not. The remnants of the 16th Legion once more eschewed their heraldry in favor of the black and gold of their new master. Freed from the shadow of their father's failure, the Black Legion began to expand, offering a place into the fold with only one demand: obey the War Master. The examples made of the thrice-cursed traitors of the Sons of the Eye, Wolves of Horus, and True Sons warbands, reminding all of the fate which idolaters of the Lupercal would receive. Untold were the legionaries discontent with the rule of their primarchs, and so the Legion grew. Their hunger to enact revenge against the Imperium, unifying them in purpose by the promising warlord made great not by bloodline, but deeds. Adorning his trophy rack with the skulls of slain Chaos champions who attempted to dismantle his legion from within or without, it did not take long for the independent warbands of Chaos to learn not to incur the wrath of the master of the Black Legion. Abaddon's charisma, strength, and cunning, winning several skeptical warlords to his cause, vast expanses of the Eye of Terror were claimed to burgeon the domains of the Legion. The War Master refusing to establish his base of operations on the soil of any planet to prevent becoming easy prey for a concerted rival assault. The only fleet-based legion to exist within the domains of the Eye, the Vengeful Spirit, as among the only remaining Gloriana-class Voidcraft remaining within the galaxy, is an imposing force unto itself. Rivaling all armies that can be mustered by any faction of the galactic expanse, not even the traitor Primarchs could have mustered such a vast assortment of warriors to their cause. The War Master's refusal to surrender his soul to any of the gods of Chaos, further imbuing him with otherworldly power, as the Pantheon vie endlessly for his submission. The black paint of the Legion's heraldry, both a constant reminder of their shame and funereal sign to mark the death of their Primarch. Few warbands dare to share such colours on their panoplies to prevent the gaze of the despoiler looking down upon them. Retaining the Eye of Horus as their sigil, the Black Legion nonetheless imposed the Star of Chaos upon its design, their pledge to destroy the Emperor and his Imperium paramount to their existence. These champions of the gods of Chaos refused to fight as thralls, but true warriors. Their dream to inevitably assault Holy Terror with a single, overwhelming strike during the Imperium's hour of direst need, driving the Black Legion to new heights of slaughter as they amass further firepower, resources, and influence. Returning to real space during 781.M31, the Black Legion's first act of aggression against the Imperium would be marked with the death of its greatest champion. High Marshal Sigismund deploying his fleet of Black Templars to aid the beleaguered planets within proximity of the Eye of Terror. Even though this second founding chapter had won glories aplenty during the Great Scouring, never before had the Imperium seen such a large army of traitors since the days of the Horus Heresy. Ravaged by 1,000 years of warfare, the Emperor's champion had slowed with age, imperceptibly so to even the keenest eyes, as during the clash between Abaddon and Sigismund, the Black Templar buried his sword to the hilt through the War Master's chest. Slaying Sigismund, despite his grievous wound, the return of the High Marshal's body to Terror, clutching his black sword, would herald the return of the traitors to the Imperium. A single phrase etched upon the ebon blade: "We are returned." Forging temporary alliances with fragments of the traitor legions time and again as they supported the Black Legion's campaigns henceforth, though the War Master had dealt a devastating blow in ending the legend of Sigismund, his next action would see such infamy pale in comparison. Not content with simply pillaging the worlds of the Imperium, Abaddon would enact the first of many of his Black Crusades. A fell mirror to the Great Crusade of centuries past, these campaigns waged to achieve bespoke objectives, which when cultivated, would enable the final downfall of the Imperium. Whole star systems were destroyed during such conflicts, many taking decades to reach their conclusion. The first enacted the same year of Sigismund's death, during 781.M31. The First Battle of Cadia would not be the last attempt to destroy the crucial fortress world, hundreds of planets burning within the Segmentum Obscurus as Abaddon's fleet fought their way to his ultimate objective. Establishing blood pacts with each of the ruinous Pantheon, the Dark Gods gifted Abaddon knowledge of a weapon of immense evil, its location within the Tower of Silence of the world of Uralan, shrouded in a cloak of shadow to conceal its presence. Drak'Nien, echo of the first murder and ender of empires, had languished in stasis deep within a labyrinth for over a millennia. The demon contained within its edge, the only to have ever wounded the master of mankind during the war within the Webway. Claiming the sword as his instrument of destruction henceforth, Abaddon's spoils of the First Black Crusade had armed him with a weapon capable of tearing reality itself apart. The wounds inflicted by its bite, capable of killing the master of mankind, should it ever have the opportunity, as its presence empowered his already terrible form. Forced to withdraw back into the Eye of Terror, due to the Imperium's hurried creation of new Space Marine chapters to combat the threat of chaos. Nonetheless, the Black Legion had been triumphant. Undisputed, as the true herald of chaos ascended, in the eyes of many pledged to serve the ruinous powers, Abaddon allowed his warlords free rein to pillage the Imperium's domains at their pleasure, should they set aside their independence when called upon for each subsequent Black Crusade. The Second Black Crusade began during 597.M32, within the Bellis Corona sector of space, Abaddon infusing each world with warp energies, whilst the Black Legion fleet harried Imperial shipyards to slow their construction and repair of devastating voidcraft. Over 300 years later, the Third Black Crusade began during 909.M32, the reckless assault of the Cadian Gate by the Demon Prince Talomin, costing millions of Imperial lives until the Space Wars intervention, allowing Abaddon to simultaneously strike the shrine world of Gerstal, breaking the ancient seal upon its namesake's tomb. The Fourth Black Crusade, over a millennia thereafter, of 001.M34, beginning the so-called Elfanor War. The Black Legion besieged the famed unbreakable citadel of Cromarch, cleaving its adamantium gates in twain with a strike of Drak'Nien. The Warmaster led his men to victory, ending the ancient bloodline of Cromarch. The Fifth Black Crusade, of 723.M36, set within the Elysia sector of space. As raiding parties distracted Imperial defenders of hundreds of planets, Abaddon lured the Warhawk and Venerators chapters to their doom upon the world of Tarinth. Within the ruins of Casa Lutane, demonic hordes of Khorne butchered the Astartes. The skulls of such space marines taken by the Demon Prince Doombreed as trophies, while Abaddon secured his unknown objective. Ending a long-standing grudge against the Sons of the Eye splinter warband of the Black Legion during the Sixth Black Crusade of 901.M36, Abaddon aided their assault of the Forge World of Arkreach before felling the Chaos Lord Drakarth the Sightless with his talon and assimilating what remained of his men back into the fold. The Seventh Black Crusade of 811.M37, enacting the Ghost War. This campaign of paranoia, deception, and disinformation played upon the Imperium's fears as Abaddon sought to claim Geneseed from the Blood Angels chapter to barter with the infamous manflayer, Fabius Bile. Khan the Betrayer and his Khornate berserkers aiding the Black Legion's assault as the Blood Angels retreated from the world of Midian, a peculiar ally aided their plight during their hour of need. The writings of Saint Leve, inscribed within the Sainted Sisters Canticle of Cassandria, speak of Astartes who fell upon the servants of the Skald One with great fury from the darkness, unseen as the beast that lurks beneath the black waters, death for death, blood for blood. Thus were the sons of Sanguinius brought respite, and did turn back upon their pursuers, and so were the damned traitors of the false gods driven unto their ruin. Honoured upon the cemetery world of Hippacetus, which depicts frescoes of such mysterious warriors, Imperial scholars have ascertained such Astartes to be the enigmatic Carcharodon's chapter, who fought to give the Blood Angels time to reorganize their forces. Retaliating against the Black Legion upon the world of Makan, the Blood Angels neared total extinction of their chapter in the ensuing battle. The Reclusiarch Phalastian Joros among the few to have ever landed an attack upon the Warmaster, as the wounds inflicted from his last act of defiance retain scars on his form to this day. Honoured for his martial skill, Abaddon, now victorious, at the cost of his honour guard taking great casualties at the hands of Joros' death company, ordered his men not to defile the Reclusiarch or his men's bodies, nor retrieve their Geneseed from the spoils. Constructing thrones of the Black Legion dead to seat such warriors' corpses atop, none can know for certainty if such a gesture was made as mockery or twisted respect by the Warmaster. The Eighth Black Crusade, enacted during 999.M37, the Black Legion slaughtered Imperial citizens in precise numbers to enact a complex ritual of death devised by the Changer of Ways, Tzeentch. The 9th Black Crusade of 537.M38 intended to destroy the naval fortress of Cancephalus, their first deployment within the monarch hive of its neighboring planet, Anticanus, laying a trap for Imperial relief efforts as they slaughtered the civilian populace. Withdrawing as Imperial reinforcements deployed, Abaddon bombarded the planet with cyclonic torpedoes before harrying Cancephalus. The resultant 17 years of war bleeding its resources dry, as chapters such as the Lamenters failed to thwart the War Master's attacks. Repelled by the Ultramarines and White Scars chapters upon the world of Corellia, the valor of such Astartes prevented the extinction of the Lamenters chapter, who had been abandoned by the Mortifactors, deeming their efforts to be cursed. The 10th Black Crusade of 001.M39, known as the Conflict of Helica, seeking to glean information of the defenses of the Medusan system of space, Abaddon joined forces with the Primarch of the Iron Warriors, Perturabo, besetting the Helican subsector of Scaris. As the Black Legion deployed upon the hive world of Thracian Primaris, the Iron Warriors assaulted the home system of the Iron Hands. The carnage wrought by the Hammer of Olympia, close to destroying the Iron Tenth, until Imperial reinforcements forced the traitors to withdraw. The 11th Black Crusade of 301.M39 made to break the Imperial cordon of the warp storms surrounding the domains of the Eye of Terror. Abaddon's hopes of harnessing a captured demon as a means of navigation backfired. Transporting the Black Fleet into a confrontation with the Wa of Orc warboss Murgor. Upon the cardinal world of Reloria, the Black Legion waged war against the Greenskins for months on end. Capturing Orcoid specimens for later study, though the 11th Black Crusade had been a disaster from the start, the assembled might of the Black Legion would not go to waste. The penultimate 12th Black Crusade, enacted during 139.M41, the otherwise known Gothic War waged within the Segmentum Obscurus, as Abaddon claimed 2 Blackstone fortresses to add to his armada's might. Destroying several worlds within the Gothic sector using his seized Xenos Voidcraft. Though the Black Legion would be pushed back by the noble warriors of the Imperial Navy, the War Master's procurement of such devastating weapons would prove crucial for his final objective. Last and most infamous of all was Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade of 999.M41. The conclusion of the 41st millennium marked with the downfall of the fortress world of Cadia, as the Despoiler hurled his Blackstone fortress, the Will of Eternity, unto its surface. Sundering the Necron pylons upon the planet's surface, which aided in the constraint of the Eye of Terror. With Cadia's destruction, the last bastion, stationed to contain the forces of chaos within the Eye of Terror, had been quelled. Soon after destroying the remaining pylons on myriad other worlds, the warp energies of the Eye of Terror expanded until its presence bisected the Imperium in twain. The final objective of Abaddon's Black Crusades realized. Now capable of allowing the denizens of the Oculus Terribus from invading the galaxy from untold vulnerabilities of the Imperium's domains, the Black Legion had after 10 millennia heralded the final days of the Emperor's reign, and Abaddon now stood alone as the most accomplished champion of chaos. The prior legacy of the Sons of Horus, known for their ability to trailblaze new strategies and battle methodologies, just as their destroyer squads and tactical squads would be adopted by other legions during their service of the Great Crusade, the Black Legion would experiment by virtue of their myriad influences inherited from brothers of many creeds. Using the 16th Legion's aggressive tendencies as foundations for their combat doctrine, the Black Legion always attacked their enemies' weak points as a priority, typically enabling one-sided conflicts which end with overwhelming firepower laying waste to their enemies. Favoring close combat engagements over that of long range, their spear-tip advances attempt to rip the proverbial throat from their foes as they apply immense pressure to enemy positions with lightning-fast speed. Whether supported by former Thousand Sun sorcerers, once Emperor's Children Blade Masters, Night Lords aerial insurgents, or rampaging Cornate Berserkers. Once securing key positions, Black Legion Astartes set up fire support platforms to allow their kindred to secure further positions. The fortification skills of Warpsmiths, once of the Iron Warriors, snipers of the Alpha Legion, or unbreakable constitution of former Death Guard, proving invaluable. Supported by demonic infantry, which typically act as expendable cannon fodder, demon engines enslaved to the will of the War Master add to the already impressive array of armored vehicles which support their maneuvers. Their fleet, comprised not only of among the last remaining flagships of the Primarchs, but also Space Hulks, battle barges, Repulsive-class Grand Cruisers, Desolator-class battleships, Despoiler-class battleships, and heavy cruisers. The dealings of the Despoiler between greater demons, infamous renegades, and even fallen sons of the Emperor bequeath him untold spoils in exchange for mutually beneficial outcomes of war. Abominations, such as the Planet Killer warship, the Arks of Omen, and even Blackstone fortresses, bringing entire star systems low within mere days of conflict. The carnage wrought by the Black Legion during campaigns such as the Gothic War proved catastrophic. Dissolving the command hierarchies of the Sons of Horus, the majority of warbands pledged to the Black Legion organize at the whims of their respective Chaos Champion overlords. Their commands overridden only during Black Crusades and missions of utmost importance, wherein Abaddon assumes total command of the assembled Legion. Benefiting greatly from their sheer numbers, the Black Legion allows for warbands within its fold to give praise to singular gods of chaos, or refuse to worship any outright. So long as their efforts further the cause of the Despoiler, all is permitted. Abaddon's personal bodyguard, known as the Aphotic Blade, the so-called Bringers of Despair, clad in Terminator plate, exemplify the greatest warriors within the Black Legion, utterly devoted to the cause of their Warmaster, as specialized formations support their advance. The Hounds of Abaddon, comprised of the devotees of the Blood God, Khorne, fight at the forefront of Abaddon's most crucial campaigns. Their master, the Lord Ravager, Ferox Hellbreed, reveling in the slaughter of melee combat as his men's lightning claws and mutated fangs rend the Despoiler's enemies into ribbons. The Bringers of Decay encompass those pledged to the Plague God, Nurgle, under the leadership of the Lord Corruptor, Skyrax Slaughterborn, spreading contagion and plague as their corrupted stench heralds future woes to their enemies. The Children of Torment, dedicated to the Prince of Pleasure, Slaanesh, under the command of Devrim Korda, the Tyrant of Sorora. These degenerates feed on the lifeblood of their foes, enacting depravities which break the morale of their enemies. The Sons of the Cyclops, under the thrall of the Changer of Ways, Tzeentch, and guidance of the Purgator of Coriolis, Egofmor the Deceiver, consists both of Rubricae and Chaos Sorcerers. Their potent magics divining portents of future enemy deployments, which are swiftly quelled by their immense, immaterial wrought arcana. Every possessed Chaos Space Marine is assigned to the Tormented, soul-merged with Neverborn entities, proving both vicious warriors on the front lines, but also navigators when not in combat scenarios due to their tether to the Immaterium. Those horrifically injured in battle or surviving punishment for betrayal are assigned to the Oathbroken, an assortment of Astartes mended by warp mutations as limbs, grafts claimed from Xenos bodies, or sutured stumps allow for their continued service, all fighting to absolve their sin as their hate for able-bodied Space Marines burgeons. The Saracen Iron Pact operate under the direct command of Abaddon, their lineage dating back to the days of the Lunar Wolves 28th Armored Assault Company, which has proven the reliable backbone of the Legion for millennia. Once comprised primarily of Terminators, Breacher Squads, and heavy assault transports, the Iron Pact, though diminished from their former glory, make effective work of Land Raiders, which supplement their losses as they aid the Despoiler's assaults of heavily defended enemy positions. The favored lieutenants of the Despoiler, known as the Chosen of Abaddon, these dark reflections of the Mournival of yore, stand as the Warmaster's chosen generals, which enact his will with unerring loyalty. The last recorded execution force intended to destroy the Chosen of Abaddon. Though such elite agents infiltrated the Vengeful Spirit, the trap laid by Abaddon saw to the annihilation of the assassins, with not a scratch left on his Chosen's panoplies. While Lord Ravager Phrexos Hellbreed oversees the invasion fleets of the Black Fleet Armada, Lord Deceiver Egofmor guides the fleet from star system to star system, rooting out worthy prey for pillaging. Lord Corruptor Skyrax Slaughterborn keeps the lesser lords of the Black Legion in line, and is responsible for slaying those who have failed in their duty beneath the notice of the Despoiler, while the Lord Purgator, Devrim Korda, ensures that all civilians left alive following the slaughter of the Black Legion's campaigns are bound in chains and put to work as laborers or sacrifices. For the war machine of Abaddon's Legion requires millions of lives to sustain, and so long as the Despoiler remains alive, the threat of chaos continues to march inexorably on their path to destroying the Throne World.
Blood never mattered to Abaddon. The old legions, the old bloodlines, the old legacies. These things meant nothing to him then, and they mean nothing to him now. They bear the patina
of undeserved pride. To the Black Legion, the other 8 bloodlines are nothing more than defeat masquerading as defiance. And no matter what you have heard regarding his tyrant's ways, he cares nothing for unquestioning servitude among his inner elite, nor does he value loyalty that can be bought.
What matters to him, what matters to his armies,
are the bonds of brotherhood in an empire that exiled us, in a haven that hated us, and in the shadows of fathers who failed us. Abaddon offered something new, something pure. Too many of our kind see themselves as nothing more than their father's sons. They become flawed reflections of their Primarch's ambitions and ideals, seeing validity in no other way of life. But I ask you the same question I ask them. Are you not souls in your own right? Are you merely the generational reflections of the men and women who made you? The answer is simple, because the question is ludicrous. We are all so much more than mirror images of those who sired us. Abaddon lived that truth, even back in those earliest days, even before we convinced him to return and take up the mantle of War Master. Eventually, he would unite thousands of warriors, cast in the images of their failed fathers, teaching these lost sons to be brothers instead. He made us look to the future, instead of fighting for a past we'd already lost. This has been a tale of the Great Imperium of Man, read by the Remembrancer. Abaddon the Despoiler, though not a son of the Emperor, has managed to transcend the legacies of even the mightiest of traitor Primarchs. Never relenting in his campaigns made to destroy the Imperium, the War Master of Chaos has rallied an army which defies the creeds espoused by beings further removed from humanity than even the Space Marines. To become successful, one does not need to exhibit the qualities of those gifted by genetic or circumstantial good fortune. For those who are the strongest, richest, or most intelligent do not craft legacies from such traits alone. For while innate talent is a potent attribute, it is but a material to be honed. For many have crafted greater tools from inferior materials using skill, experience, and study. So do not waste time comparing the traits you could have had compared to others, and focus instead on how to utilize the characteristics you have to best effect.